there, we have a really pretty filigree card for today's video episode. And I'm going to show you a couple things you can do to make your ivies look more lifelike. And this has been recessed, so it's just a nice little way to use the dies in kind of a different sort of manner. To show you the products that we'll be using, the star of the show today is the Copenhagen die from the Scandinavian collection. It's really pretty in filigree. I'm going to be using the center part of the Stockholm die from that same collection. Here is your finishing touches trailing ivy. This is a beautiful die. I think it's such a nice accent on your cards. And the border on this is from the Gemini die collection called Carina. Now, I've done a couple of cards where I've used this side, but we're going to use the other side and just show you how it looks differently. And for tiny little accents, I've got the Camellia Complete Petal, and these have some really, really tiny flowers in them, and that's what we're going to be using. So let me set these out of our way, and we're going to do a bit of cutting first up. So I think I'll start with the border. And like I said, the Carina die has two different areas you can cut with, but we're going to use this side just to give it a little bit different of a look. So I'm going to line it up on the bottom of my card here and tape it into place with some removable tape. And here is your separate cutting edge. So right about there, and we're going to pop that down so it's evenly centered. That looks good. I'm going to add some tape on there, hold them into place nicely. I'll put one on either side, and I think I'll put one in the back just to make sure it's good and secure. And I'm going to cut this first. It's good to have your dies, the long dies, run the length of your cutting plate. They cut easier that way. And I do recommend doing them one at a time with really detailed dies like this. So run this through. And let's see how that one's cut for us. Got a beautiful cut there. It's absolutely gorgeous. Now you can emboss this on your own card. I'm going to just continue on cutting for this, this video. Let's just remove all of our tape bits, and we can use those later. There we go. Knock out a little bit of the fall away pieces to show you just how pretty this is. So you've got a completely different look with this, with the top part of that die being the scallopy part and the bottom part being more the zigzag. I love the way that came out. Really, really pretty. Now tidy those up, and we're going to cut the Copenhagen die on the top. Now I actually am going to use this mostly for the aperture on the outside here, but we are going to use the actual cut version of it lower down. We'll recess it down into our card. Put that into place there. And we'll run this one through that direction. You can check the website at Creative Expressions to see if there's the sandwich you need for a different machine. For the grand caliber, you're just using your base plate and your cutting plate. It's absolutely cut beautifully. One pass through. So let's just carefully take that out. There we go. And I can even knock out the pieces, most of the pieces with my tooling one. So you can get those in there. Do a little light loosening it with my fingernail around the inside edge, and I want to use a pokey tool for these top bits up here. It's got a lot of little swirly guys. There we go. And we should be able to get right underneath there. Work it around and poke these little swirly guys out on this side. So you can see how pretty that die is. Isn't that gorgeous? Just love the way that looks. So let me set this to the side and tidy up just a little bit. Got some pieces that kind of went everywhere. But what we want is the aperture from that and the border cut out. And I do have one that I prepared earlier with a little bit of mounting foam, and I put a piece of white card behind that. I've got some mounting foam between it so we can recess that down inward. But before we get there, what I'm going to do is cut the ivy. Now, I wasn't really happy with any of the green card that I had, so I've used some distress ink, a little bit of crushed olive, a little bit of forest moss, and I'm going to just put my ivies down on top of that. And we'll get kind of a more natural green, I think. Let's use some of this tape that we had earlier. We'll tape these into place so they stay. And get that right like that. Let's run these through. Tell you, we'll just run them back through. Since we've got 2 on there, we'll give them a double dose. They've cut gorgeous. So let's just see what those look like. Take my tape off. It's kind of like Christmas unwrapping your presents, isn't it? Get to see what you have. Okay, pop that down there, and let's see, there's my pokey tool. Get this little guy started. And they're very, very delicate, but they really are easy to get out. You just have to get the tip of it started and work it up. There. See how pretty that comes out? You get a much more natural look that way, I think. It's not as static as having one piece of green card. Pop that one up. There we go. Really, really pretty like that. Now, the other thing you can do, too, is if you want to kind of highlight some spots and you might have gotten the color a little bit too dark, you can use a snow cap Adirondack pad and just give some touches of white across the top here. Kind of gives it a little bit more natural look. Just tiny little highlights. So you can see how that looks. And I think what I'll do is just hit it with a heat tool to make sure it's good and dry. Your distress inks will stay wet longer, so it's always a good idea to just give them a little blast of the hot air to make sure that they're good and dry before you put them on your card. That'll work. Okay. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this die down into that recessed area. So we'll put a little bit of Cosmic Shimmer glue on there, and let me just try and get as many of those as you can. Okay. And if you've got a bit of extra glue, you can kind of wipe your finger across that and they'll smooth it out so it won't go everywhere. So I'm just going to push that directly into the area it came out of. And I like to use a pokey tool to kind of get those little curly bits down in place. You can work your finger all the way around the edge there. Get that in there. Get them nice and seated. There we go. So you can see how pretty that looks, just having it recessed down into the base of the card. So I'm going to go ahead and put that onto my base with a little bit of double-sided tape. There we go. And I've used a rich plum base behind it, so it's really going to stick out really nicely, stand out really nicely. There we go. So you can see how that's already coming together so pretty. It really shows off that border detail. So I've stamped a sentiment, And I've cut it out with a combination of the Stockholm and the Copenhagen dyes. I've inked around it with some seedless preserves, and I've got a little bit of mounting foam on the back. That's going to go right in the center here. That's pretty. And I'm going to add my ivy just off to the corner here. I'll tell you what, I'm going to use a little bit of glue for this, I think. And I'm going to have it coming from this corner area there, and one of them going a little bit more upward towards my sentiment. Really nice like that. To cover the actual edge of that, I've tied a messy bow out of seam binding, and I've added one of our crystal sparklers. These are beautiful, detailed little pieces that you can put in the center of your bows or even flowers, things like that. They're absolutely gorgeous. I love using these. And find a glue dot to put this on with. And that will hide that really, really nicely. And because I wanted to add a little bit more color to my ivy, and I can, I've cut some tiny little flowers out of the complete petal Camellia with some little pearls in the centers of them. And I'm just going to pop them along the ivy with a little bit of dry as clear glue. You can just give them some forming with your fingers. Put a few down here. Who says ivy can't have flowers? It's your card, and you can do it any way you like. One there. I'll just put on one more here. We'll get that, and tell you what, let's put that one right up here. And I'm going to add one to my sentiment just to kind of balance that out a little bit. Put a little one right up in the tip there. And I finished off the corners of this card with our new little pearls. They're done in little corners, but I've just used that portion of the pearls. I've cut away this. I can use it for something else. Really pretty to finish that off. And I've got a couple little stick pins that I've made just hiding over here in the corner. I'm going to push those underneath my bow so that the sharp point won't stick anybody. There we go. And how pretty is that? Really quick and easy. You have a gorgeous filigree card, and I think that is lovely. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Crafting My Style, and you'll join us again.